Beijing, China, August 16, 2008. The Bird's Nest Stadium holds 91,000 souls, but in this moment the world contracts to 8 lanes and 100 meters of rubber and heartbreak. You crouch into the blocks. Lane 4. The air tastes electric, thick with the sweat of 80,000 screaming witnesses. Camera flashes explode like lightning across the stands, a constellation of human anticipation. Your fingertips press into the track's surface, warm from the August sun, textured like possibility itself. Behind you, a lifetime. Ahead of you, 9.69 seconds that will rewrite history. The muscles in your legs coil like springs forged from Caribbean thunder. Your heart pounds, not from fear but from something deeper. Recognition. You know what you're about to do. You've always known. Set. Your hips rise. The noise of the crowd compresses into a single, suffocating silence. The gun cracks, and you explode. By 40 meters, you're already separating from the field. By 60, the gap is obscene. By 80 meters, and this is the part that will haunt athletics forever, you begin to slow down. You turn your head. You look at the men still chasing you. You spread your arms wide like a man embracing the entire world. You are celebrating before you cross the finish line. The clock reads 9.69 seconds, a world record. Achieved while showboating, while disrespecting the very laws of physics. The commentators lose their minds. That's the most incredible thing I've ever seen. But who is this man? This impossibly tall sprinter from a tiny Caribbean island who just changed everything. Where does a lightning bolt come from? You were born on August 21st, 1986, in the small rural parish of Trelawney, Jamaica. Not in a hospital with sterile lights and beeping machines, but in Sherwood Content, a village so small it barely registers on most maps. Population, barely 2,500. One main road, one small grocery, one church where everyone knew everyone's sins. Your parents were Wellesley and Jennifer Bolt. Your father ran a small grocery store in the village, rising before dawn to sort through produce, staying past dark to count meager earnings. Your mother worked as a dressmaker, her fingers worn rough from needle and thread, creating beauty from fabric scraps while dreaming of something more for her children. Money was scarce, shoes were shared, dinner was whatever grew in the yard or swam in nearby streams. You grew up with your brother Siddiqui and sister Sharina in a modest home where love was abundant, but luxuries were fantasies whispered about on Christmas mornings. But you were not a quiet child. At 6 years old, you discovered something. Speed. Raw, inexplicable, terrifying speed. You ran through the dirt roads of Sherwood Content like something possessed. Racing goats, racing bicycles, racing older boys who thought they could humble this skinny kid with legs too long for his body. They couldn't. No one could. At Waldensia Primary School, your teachers noticed. During cricket matches, you weren't the best batsman or bowler, but you were uncatchable between wickets. Races during lunch became spectacles. Children would gather just to watch you run, to witness something they couldn't explain but somehow understood was special. Your first real coach was Pablo McNeil, a former Olympic sprinter himself who coached at William Knibb Memorial High School. When you arrived at William Knibb at age 12, you were awkward, 6 feet tall and still growing. Your coordination was a mess. Your attention span shorter than a sprint. But McNeil saw something. That boy, he told other coaches, runs like he's being chased by ghosts. At 14, you won your first high school championships medal, the 200 meters. You weren't supposed to win. You were too young, too undisciplined, too everything they said wouldn't work at this level. You won anyway. But here's what nobody talks about. You hated training. Despised it. The repetitive drills, the weight room sessions, the dietary restrictions, they felt like cages to a spirit built for freedom. Your coaches battled your stubbornness constantly. Some days you simply wouldn't show up. Other days you'd train at half effort, talent carrying you where discipline should have. Your father would sit you down on the porch of your family home, the Caribbean sunset painting everything gold, and speak plainly. Gift without work becomes nothing. He'd say, God gave you fast legs, but lazy hands steal what God gave. You listened, Sort of. Just enough to keep winning. Just enough to keep the dream alive, even when you weren't entirely sure what that dream looked like. At 15, standing on the podium at the World Junior Championships in Kingston, Jamaica, you heard your national anthem play for the first time as a champion. And something clicked. The path from prodigy to phenomenon is paved with broken promises and shattered expectations. Yours was no different. In 2004, at just 17 years old, you became the first junior athlete to run the 200 meters under 20 seconds. 1993. The world whispered your name for the first time. The next great Jamaican sprinter, they called you. Comparisons to your idol Don Quarry flooded the newspapers. But the whispers became doubts when the senior circuit humbled you. Your body, now 6 feet 5 inches of pure contradiction, couldn't stay healthy. That same year, a hamstring injury during the Athens Olympics ended your debut before it truly began. You limped off the track, tears streaming down your face, wondering if your body was built wrong, too tall, too fragile, too much stress on muscles that couldn't handle what your ambition demanded. The next 2 years brought more injuries. Hamstring, hamstring, hamstring again. Doctors shook their heads. Experts questioned whether your frame was simply incompatible with elite sprinting. You were too tall, they said. Your stride mechanics created unnatural strain. Perhaps you should consider the 400 meters. Perhaps you should consider realistic expectations. In 2005, you hit bottom. Another hamstring tear at the World Championships in Helsinki. Another DNF next to your name, another flight home filled with silence and shame. You called your mother from your apartment in Kingston. "Maybe they're right," you told her, voice cracking. "Maybe my body just can't do this." Jennifer Bolt listened. Then she spoke with the quiet steel of a woman who had survived poverty, sacrifice, and every doubt the world could throw at her children. "Your body isn't the problem, Usain. Your mind is choosing to believe people who have never been where you're going." You hired a new coach in 2005. Glen Mills, the man who would change everything. Mills was technical, obsessive. He studied your stride like a mathematician studying equations. He identified the problem. You were fighting your height instead of weaponizing it. "You don't need to take more steps," Mills told you. "You need to make every step an earthquake." The training transformed. Longer stride phases, adjusted block starts, core strengthening to stabilize your towering frame. For the first time in your career, you submitted fully to the process. In 2007, you demanded that Mills let you run the 100 meters. He resisted. The 200 was your natural distance, he argued, but you persisted. "Let me prove what I am," you said. At the Vardanoiania meeting in Crete, you ran 10.03 seconds in the 100 meters. Then, at the Jamaica International Invitational in Kingston, you broke the national record, 9.76 seconds. Suddenly, the doubts evaporated. The phone began ringing. Sponsors, journalists, Olympic committees, everyone wanted to know the same thing. Where had you been hiding? Beijing 2008, the Olympics that changed everything. You entered the Games as a question mark. The 100 meters had never been won by someone your height. The explosive start, the phase that decided champions, was supposed to favor compact sprinters with quick turnover. Tyson, Asafa, Powell, these were the favorites. You were the curiosity. But on August 16th, you answered every question the sport had ever asked. The 100-meter final. Lane 4. When the gun fired, your start was merely adequate, 5th or 6th out of the blocks. But then your stride began to open, and suddenly adequate didn't matter. By 50 meters, you were ahead. By 70, the race was over. By 90, you were looking around, arms spread, celebrating while your competitors still sprinted desperately behind you. 9.69 seconds, a world record, achieved while showboating, achieved with an untied shoelace. Scientists later calculated that had you maintained effort through the finish, you would have run approximately 9.55 seconds. You left time on the table like spare change. 4 days later, you won the 200 meters, 19:30 seconds, another world record. Michael Johnson's supposedly unbreakable 1932 from 1996 erased in one transcendent lap. The 4x100-meter relay followed. Jamaica's quartet, featuring Nesta Carter, Michael Frater, and Asafa Powell, obliterated the field. 37:10 seconds, a third gold medal, a third world record. 1 year later, Berlin 2009, the World Championships. The world had a question. Was Beijing a fluke? Could anyone run faster? You answered with the most perfect race ever run, the 100-meter final. No showboating this time, no looking around. Pure, violent speed from gun to tape. 9.58 seconds. The crowd fell silent. Commentators stumbled over words. What you had done seemed less like athletics and more like divine intervention. To this day, no human has run within 0.06 seconds of that time. It stands alone in history, a monument to what one man could do when everything aligned. The 200 meters followed, 19.19 seconds. Another world record that still stands 15 years later. At London 2012, you defended all 3 Olympic titles. The 100 meters in 9.63 seconds, the fastest time ever run at an Olympic Games. The 200 meters in 19.32 seconds, equaling Johnson's old record. The relay in 36.84 seconds, yet another world record. At Rio 2016, you completed the unprecedented triple-triple. 3 gold medals in 3 consecutive Olympics. 9 gold medals. 0 defeats in individual Olympic finals. Your style became your signature. The lightning bolt pose, arms pointed toward the sky, chest thrust outward, like you were claiming not just victory, but the very air around you. You brought joy to a sport often defined by cold precision. You danced before races, you mugged for cameras, you made sprinting fun. Track and field had never seen anything like you. It likely never will again. But lightning cannot strike forever without consequence. In 2010, your back began to betray you. Scoliosis, a curvature of the spine you'd lived with since childhood, started extracting its price. The condition meant one leg was slightly longer than the other, creating chronic imbalance. Every stride, every training session, every explosive start sent tremors through a foundation built on imperfection. You hid the pain. Champions do. But hiding something doesn't make it disappear. At the 2017 World Championships in London, in what you'd announced would be your final major competition, the years of accumulated damage came due. During the 4x100-meter relay final, with the baton in your hand and the crowd screaming your name one last time, your hamstring tore. Not cramped, not strained, tore. You collapsed on the track. The image Usain Bolt, the fastest man in history, crumpled on the blue surface of London Stadium, unable to finish his final race, became one of sport's most heartbreaking photographs. You tried to stand, you couldn't. You tried to hop, your body refused. Teammates came to help you, but you pushed them away at first, desperate to finish on your own terms. Eventually, you accepted their shoulders and limped across the finish line. No medal, no fairy tale ending. The criticism that followed was brutal. Some said you'd stayed too long. Others said you'd never fully committed to training, that your natural talent had masked fundamental weaknesses. Commentators who had praised you for a decade suddenly found flaws they'd always suspected. But the physical pain was nothing compared to what came next. In 2022, you discovered that a Jamaican investment firm had defrauded you of approximately $12.7 million, a significant portion of your life savings. The betrayal came from people you trusted, fellow Jamaicans who had exploited your success for their own greed. You considered silence, you considered letting it go, protecting your image, maintaining the jovial persona the world loved. Instead, you spoke publicly, honestly, painfully. "I've worked hard for everything I have," you said. "For people to take what I've earned through deception hurts more than any injury ever could." Through it all, you remained, unbowed, unbroken, determined to be defined by how you responded to darkness, not by the darkness itself. You changed sprinting forever. Before you, the 100 meters belonged to compact, explosive men. After you, coaches worldwide began reconsidering body types, stride mechanics, and the physics of speed itself. You proved that height could be weaponized, that the rules everyone accepted weren't rules at all, just limitations waiting to be shattered. Your world records in both the 100 meters, 9 feet 8, and 200 meters, 19.19, have stood for over 15 years. In an era of advanced training, superior nutrition, and evolved equipment, no one has come close. These times may outlive everyone reading this, but records are just numbers. Your true legacy is joy. You made track and field electric. You filled stadiums with people who had never cared about sprinting before. You created moments, the celebrations, the poses, the impossibly relaxed brilliance that transcended sport and became culture. In Jamaica, you are more than a hero. You are proof. Proof that a child from Sherwood Content, from dirt roads and modest dreams, can become the greatest sprinter in human history. Children across the Caribbean, across Africa, across every corner of the world, where poverty makes dreams feel impossible, look at you and believe, because you are not just fast, you are the fastest, ever, and that belongs to all of us. Here's what Usain Bolt teaches us beyond the medals and the records. Your limitations are negotiable. The expert said he was too tall. The doctor said his body couldn't handle it. The critics said he didn't train hard enough. He listened to none of them and proved all of them wrong. You are not defined by what others think you should be. You are defined by what you're willing to become. If this story moved you, if you felt something watching a boy from rural Jamaica become a living legend, then you understand why we tell these stories. They remind us what's possible. Subscribe to this channel so you never miss another journey like this one. Leave a comment telling us which athlete's story you want to hear next. And if you know someone who needs to believe in themselves today, share this video with them, because somewhere out there, another child is running down a dirt road, chasing something only they can see. Let's make sure they know lightning can strike anywhere.